So what I want to tell you about is tools. You got to have water, a lot of fresh masking. You all have probably heard that many times before. Masking has to be clean and fresh, never been mixed with soap and cleaner. Um, Applicators, I have an example somewhere. I'm not going to do a thing about masking because everybody probably knows enough about it now. But I use bamboo stylus to do lines. They come in various sizes. I use a crochet hook right on here. That'll do just a little tiny line. And then I use brushes for the bigger areas. And sometimes I use masking that's been thin for specific purposes to kind of dry brush it versus the thick masking that you have to use because it shrinks. Y'all know that masking, when you apply it after it dries, it'll have tiny pinpricks. So if you have a large area like this, the this will definitely show pinpricks. So then you have to go a little bit so that you don't get those little tiny prints. The reason I like to use used to like to use PBO, but I've moved over to liquid. What is that? Incredible White. I think it does easier removal and it doesn't feel as much color when you remove it. The bad thing about Incredible White is you can't see it on it. So I found out, a friend of mine told me, put a little color in it. So here's my Incredible White with a little bit of scarlet, just a tad, and it doesn't transfer into the page, so you can see it much easier. So you can apply it in several ways. You can apply it with your wonderful atomizer. You can apply it with pipettes. I learned this trick from Lori Goldstein Warren. She does with water, and she does this with and oh, I'm sure you've seen these misters before. They really apply paint nicely. No, I do not. I do not have a microphone that works, so I'll try and speak a little loud. I'll speak up. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So, misters, this came from Sally Beauty, okay? Not an art store. This came from an art store, not especially different. In fact, it's not different at all. So, if you're not near an art store, you can always try that. I use jars to mix paint. We have a little top, and they're clear enough that when I shake it, I know whether it's mixed up. Because some of my paints will sell. Okay, various bottles. Oh, the other thing I do use sometimes, most of the time when I'm remixing paint and I'm adding paint to it, I will test it and check my value. So to see what value, these are the various paints that I use. And I'll have a little chart to make sure I have it dark enough before I start applying it. Oh, yeah. You flip it around, and I do usually write down what it is. Sometimes I forget. Yeah. So it goes in a lot of easy places. Okay. So, well, lots of paint, lots of paper towels. You're going to use a lot of water. I use a tub to catch my runoff. This is only good for half sheets and quarter sheets. If I do a full sheet, this will not fit in this tub. So what I end up doing is, at the bottom of my tub, I have these things called pigs. They're industrial water absorbers. It'll hold a gallon of water. And it'll get real big and real fat. A pig, P-I-G, pig, yeah. And it holds any water, any runoff. Being messy, I keep it in here, but when I use it on a full sheet, I put it on my table, and I line my table with it, and it goes into this without me ever having to clean it. See, I used to have a towel. I used to keep a towel like this, and that'd be wet, sopping wet with paint in it. And what do you do with a sopping wet towel and paint? If you're not going to throw it in the wash, you have to carry it around the bucket, hang outside, do something. These, I love it. You don't have to throw them away after they get used. Pigs. Amazon. Pigs. Yeah. They no, they're industrial water absorbing pads, reusable. Because once the water absorbs, it then evaporates, and then it's perfectly fine to use over and over again. It doesn't go through. How about that? Yeah, it's something. No, it's industrial. It's like used. They're in different sizes. This is kind of a small size, but places that have wet areas, they use these to hold water so people don't slide and fall, or it picks up. It can be for that hurricane coming, but I'll tell you where I used one once. My husband was out of town, and he takes care of all the important things. And he is always out of town when something breaks, of course. So we had a leaky pipe in around my hot water heater. It was a valve that was leaking, and I knew I couldn't fix it, and I wasn't going to turn off my hot water heater. So I threw a pig under it, and it was a little balloon the next day, but there was no water running around. So that's enough about little pigs. Yes, they do. You'll have to look that up, but yeah, they come in bigger sizes. So just Amazon. Well, I'm not sure exactly their sizes because I use this size. This is the one I buy. Yes, they probably come in much larger sizes. So this is for industrial use. So there you go. And they're called pigs, Pig. Okay. All right, so paints. Sometimes I use acrylics. Acrylics are great because when you're pouring and it dries, it's not going to run. And when you find you're using transparent paints and you re-wet it, it's going to run and you're going to get more grays that you don't really want. So when I really want to keep a color, that color, I use an acrylic, and it pours just like transparent water. The background on this one really looks just like transparent water. So you keep your palette. I keep my palette simple. I usually use 4 to 6 colors, warms and cools, and let's see, good composition and values, and that's what does most of this. So what we're going to do now, that's it. Now we're going to, so we're going to do 2 levels. This is, there's a slight, that's right, you can see. Sorry, you got me. This is, I had used a light yellow and a red in this, and let it dry, and then I applied all of my masking to the whites of the dogwood because that's going to be painted later. We're going to take the masking off my one that's finished, and when I get home, I'll go ahead and paint that white. I mean, you know how to paint. This is how we're going to do it today. So normally this time I'm going to lightly mist it. The first go round, when I first do my first pour, this thing is softened wet because I want it to be light. It is. It is yellow. I've already put yellow in it. Yeah. So I just want to make sure there's nothing to roll around. Right now. I didn't bring a brush with me, so bear with me. Okay. So I'm going to take it off the edges. Make sure I have enough. I'm using my fingers because I didn't bring a brush with me. Your edges always dry out first, so try and make sure those are very wet. And by keeping it, I like to keep it taped because otherwise it's going to do this. It's going to wobble on you. You're going to get little deeper colors in some areas. And this way I can keep it pretty uniform. So we're going to show you a couple of different methods. Yeah, it's just taped to a piece of foam. It's nothing important. Reusing. So we're going to do a little atomizing just to get. I use a special tape that I get off of Jackson's Art Supply from the UK. I like it a lot. It's very, very useful because it doesn't look good. But when I'm ready to take it off, it comes off like a drill. So it's Jackson's Art Supply. It's whatever they have. So that's a little atomizing. Okay. No, this is watercolor. Now, I brought a few acrylics, but I really aren't going to. I'm not going to use them today. Yes, I use a liquid. Both. I use the liquid acrylics that I've added some water to. So not the, they have those little jars that are the super fluid. I don't use those. I use regular liquid acrylic. Gold. I like. So there we go. That's just one color. So now I'm going to use one of my spray bottles just to show you if I can find it. Let's see if this one's going to work today. Last time I used this, it was stopped up. I sprayed. I went pump, 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 pump. Nothing came out. I set it down, and then all of a sudden went. So no, we're going to go down into the. That is Scarlet Lake by Holbein. Scarlet Lake by Holbein. And I urge you, if you do this, if you look at any one of my colors, I'll tell you it'll have who makes it and what color it is. And it helps me because actually, after a while you start developing different colors you want, and you don't remember until you lift up and look at it what you got. And so everything I have is labeled. I keep notes on my paintings. The reason why is that if you're making, like for instance, I told you my husband, it turned out bad, and then he turned out worse. And so I had notes on how I had applied the paint, what paint I used. And I kept those notes, and then I would go back and I would review so I could bring it back to where I wanted it. Because if you don't take notes and you have failure after failure after failure, you don't know what you've done wrong. You think you know what you've done, but I really urge you. I have a notebook on all my paintings. It helps you date your paintings too. With more and more places saying you've got to have, it's got to be between January 1st and this date, and no further. You know how old that painting is. So the other thing I also know about this is that you can review it. You can say, well, I've done 25 paintings this year. How many of those paintings were good? And you go through it and you actually start rating yourself and you start saying, okay, I had a pretty good year. Or maybe I'll put a note in that I won an award with it. And then I keep my notes. So then I know later, years later, I can say, oh, I did a nice painting back then. And I won't remember the year, please. I can't remember mostly what I did yesterday. I don't even know what I had for breakfast. So I don't know about you, but it helps me. Okay, so see how we got now. We let this get a little bit dry. So we're going to pop it a bit. And it's going to be running off. So let me put a little more paint on. I'm talking and I'm not thinking, which happens. All right, let's see what we got. We'll use a little cool. Put a little cool down. That was Winsor Newton Permanent Rose. So I got a little cool going here. I want to introduce a little bit of, usually I wouldn't put it in this pour, but I'm going to do it today. We're going to pour the story Colston Warren's technique. Ooh, isn't that fun? This is why you do it in a bucket, And believe me, there's not an outfit I have that doesn't have paint on it, even though I wear it. So I really enjoy it, but it's an expensive process because you're pouring off some paint every time. You're wanting it all to work perfectly, and when it doesn't, and you have another sheet of paper and some more paint. So be willing to invest in yourself if you're going to give this a try. Don't be afraid to use your fingers. And as you notice, this is all the mask. So I'm going to wipe this off. This is, I got some on this. I'm talking. No, I'm doing all transparent watercolor. This is again Scarlet Lake. I'm just going to add a little bit thicker than the spray because I'm letting things dry and I've got to get some movement going here. So you do this and you keep it wet until you think you've got a layer of paint that you like. Okay? And there's no rush. It's all wet. You can work on this for a while, especially if you spray or atomize. You're lightly adding a little bit here, a little bit there. Once it goes off the edge, I don't put it back. And the other thing about these, you usually have a couple. I usually have a couple going because dry time. I use a fan, and I put them on the floor in my house, and let the fan blow over them. For a day before I go at them again. It does take a long time to dry when you have a lot of masking and you have it taped down. Because you taped it down, you essentially let the bottom, it's going to stay wet all the way through. Once you get it wet like this, it'll take at least 8 to 10 hours to dry. And when it's very full of masking, it can take at least 24 hours to dry. So don't rush it, and don't use a hair dryer. I know people do. I just do not believe in that. I've actually, that's a good idea. 300-pound cold pressed arches. Heat will melt the mask into the page, and when you try to pull it off, it's sad because you spent hours working on something and then it's just ripped. And I've even tried to fix the rips, but they don't really fix well. So I strongly urge not heat, although I know people who do it. Do a little bit more, and then I'm going to quit. And we're going to take off and reveal that one. Antwerp blue. It turns into a lovely. It's got too much yellow. Green. And you add a little yellow. Isn't that pretty? I use whatever I feel like you want. That blue I just used, Antwerp blue by Winsor Newton. It's really a nice blue, and it goes green. It's kind of a nice warm blue. It's as warm a blue as I've ever seen. So we'll just kind of dab this off and let this dry. This is essentially the second pour on this. Well, there's not a ratio. That's why I have these test strips. The test strips show how vivid, how the value of the paint. Now this is Daniel Smith Quinn Gold, and I'll mix it to wherever level I want. Usually up here is usually where I mix it to. So when I add paint to my jar or to my spray bottles, I'll mix it and then I'll test it. And I'll test it against here by laying this against that test, and that'll tell me if I'm got the value where I want. So I don't use a ratio, I use a test value. Okay, so it's a little bit. All right, so now we're done with today's pouring. Let me clean my hands off. And then we're going to take the masking off. Yeah. They don't, yes. Oh, cloth? Absolutely. I'm fighting with one at home right now. I have soap for a couple of days, and everything I can, I think it's shot. So, life is like that. No. When I'm really, I had a bad month in August. COVID, so I wasn't doing any painting. And because of that, I couldn't keep my spray bottles going. I got a clog. So those kinds of things happen, and I'm not going to worry about it. If I need a spray bottle, I'll buy it. So. Oh, okay. Come on up, and we'll teach you. If you don't mind blowing after me, I'll rinse it off. Okay, now this is the Pabdu's. This is the Pabdu's atomizer. Okay. Okay. It's about $50 some. So pick a color. You can pick any color you like. That is. And put blue. Okay. Always shake it. Now, you gotta feel comfortable when you shake it. Okay. You gotta know that top is down. Okay. All right. So you put this in, and then you blow, aiming where you're gonna attach it. So,
You want me to ruin your picture?
no, no, go ahead. We're playing. Hard. Really hard. Really hard. There you go. Yay!
Cool. Cool.
You did it.
I got one of those that I got at a garage sale and bought it.
There you go.
Now I know.
Now you do it. And if you've ever had a John Salmon class, he uses atomizing on his, and it in a real kind of light to unify his paintings. So even if you don't ever pour, an atomizer is really nice to pull a painting together. And you'll find out you'll use it more than you think. But first you have to get one, and then you have to kind of play with it a little bit. So now it's wet again. You gotta draw it up. I want to get this because it's going to blossom if I don't. I think I bought it Cheap Joe's. I think. Pat Dews, yeah. It's Cheap Joe's. A lot of places sell them. Okay, so here is this. This one is about ready to have its masking pulled off. And there. Okay. Whoever is listening to this now, we're having a really good time. You should be here. Okay, so we're going to try and start pulling this off and see what we got. And let's hope it's going to be a wonderful. I have had a few examples of really surprising, beautiful things come out. See how nice this comes out in one big, cool. This is that invisible white. Incredible white. Thank you. Incredible white. Incredible white. It's more expensive than PBF. So, see how that's nice pulling off? That's nice and thick mask. Good question. Usually I don't keep it on, but maybe 2 weeks before I pull it off. But I pulled off old stuff and been both successful and failed at that. So I think it mostly depends on how old your masking is when you start. there's a limited life to this product. Oh, this is going pretty good. Oops. Multiple. Between 4 and 5 usually, and in this case, on the one we just did, I'll probably do a little more background on that before I go and put more masks. Okay, came out pretty good. I definitely like that more than video, but we got a tear on the paper, so hopefully you won't see that once I start painting. I'm not going to paint. Oops. Am I early or late? Oh, gosh. Okay, keep going. Okay, so having no brush, I would sit here and brush this, but I didn't bring our brushes thinking, I'm going to run out of time before I get this done. But this was done in the same manner as that one, except this is all transparent, and that is acrylic in the back. Okay, we'll bring that over and show that for those who aren't here. Yeah. So this one was done with acrylics. Okay, in the background, all the stuff up here and things are transparent watercolors. This is all transparent watercolor, and it's a matter of different colors that we've used. And the painting is going to be finished with transparent watercolors. All right. Well, since I'm kind of stuck right now, I don't have another thing to check. Oh, yes, please. Question. Arches 300 cold press. Yes, I believe it is bright white, not natural white. Yes, ma'am. Yes, liquid acrylic. Just like we just showed. Here, this is golden twin nickel azo gold. Okay, so this is close to the Daniel Smith twin gold. And even though it has a little more orange to it when you put it on the page, it is definitely like a twin gold. And okay, so these are all. This is golden Payne's gray. Payne's gray is great if you have to have something stick and you need a dark, and you don't want it moving, and you don't want it turning gray. If you use a transparent Payne's gray, oh, you're brilliant. Yes. Thank you. If you use a, I forgot what, a transparent Payne's gray, it's going to slide all over the page. So, wow. Super. Wow. Absolutely. So, so here's my painting. Here's my picture. Okay. Is that better? Okay. That I'm trying to do. So what I come in here, and I could use this. This is the golden. Use a little acrylic on here. Oops. Yes, I have done them both ways. Okay. I've done darks to light, much harder because you have to mask everything. Or I'm sorry, you don't mask everything. Let me think about this for a minute. I know how to do this. Yes, you mask everything. Okay. And then you start with a 1/4, okay, of your regular values. And then as you're taking off your masking, you're pouring on top of those. And those, so if, let's say, you're going to do 5 pours, your fifth pour, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be your darkest 4. So when you start, everything but number 5 on your page, anything else is masked. And then you pour your, because what you're going to do is every time you pour, that is going to get dark. And then you have to take masking off, and that means cutting with a razor blade masking, or peeling it and then reapplying in places that you pulled off and you didn't want it. So in that, I think about that, and that takes more work. So I don't want it. So what I do now is I start with my lights and go down in terms of if your whites are going to keep, they'll go on. The masking goes on first, then your second lightest, third lightest, fourth. Yes, yeah, kind of like that. Exactly. Let's see. So here we go. Oh, which this little leaf one? That? This? Oh, that was, I masked that. Okay, so I finished my pour, my third pour, or my third, let's say it's third. And then I masked, and then I poured once more. So it just gives you a kind of a, there's a leaf there, and there's a little stem there, and I can embellish that. And because this is transparent, I can lift. In fact, we can lift a little bit out of it now before I start painting. So you can do a lot of things with masking that you didn't think you could use. Just gently lift it because you don't want to. But that's transparent. Now, if this was acrylic, I wouldn't be doing this. And something to think about. If you want it to stay a certain color, you want that acrylic. So here we go. We're going to put a little water here. This is probably very, very, very dark. Very. Now, one other thing you might not know, when you pull it off, it's rough with paper. So your paper's going to absorb a little bit differently. Something to think about. There's good and bad about it. When you mask and you take off your mask and you're planning to go back in and paint on that area is rough. It's damaged the paper, the fiber. So just keep that in mind when you're going to get a little bit more texture in wherever you want. If I wanted this to be real smooth, that would be a bad paint. I'd paint it first and then mask it. And then when I keep my I've never used that. Burnish it with a spoon. Okay. All right. I like that. Thank you. Something to learn. So there we go. Incredible white. I have it somewhere sitting up here, but I can't find it right now. Yeah, you can get it wherever you get art supplies usually. I can get it at Atlanta. We have a big lick close by, and I'm sure you can get Cheap Joe's and you can get it at Cherries and whoever else you order from. There's Winsor Newton has one, has a masking, and it's good. It's got a little color in it so you can see it easier. But I did notice that. Oh, wow. So anyway, so we go in. I'm gonna just get my things here. So that's how I go about finishing off something like this, and that's what I did with that paint. Do this with everything, but the more and more I get into this, the more I realize you have to use a brush after you've done before. You can't just say, I poured it, it's done. There's brush work always needed. Oh, I did want to tell you. Let me talk a little bit about this painting. Everybody's got a pile painting, right? Go through it. Let's see. Can you see this right? Right there. This was a painting I had never intended to finish because I didn't like it. I didn't like what was going. I had painted it's upside down. Oh, I'm sorry. Upside down. Right. How's that? There. Right. These are ship wheels, and these are big sailboat wheels, and these are old stylish ship wheels. And I started painting them, and I just didn't like it. And I got out old paintings about 6 months ago and said, how can I use this? I've already painted on the back, so I couldn't do that. So I got my pouring out, and I started doing some masking, started doing some value changes, and it came out better than I had hoped because I was really going to toss it. So if you've got those, I really don't like it, I'm never going to finish it, I'd suggest you try something like this. You're never going to know if it's going to turn out. Try something different. Throw some paint on it, wet it down, get some liquid paint, let it run, use some masking, mask some whites out. Just things happen that you don't expect. So this was going to be a trash paint, and I managed to save it. So I want you to think that you can do more than just pour from beginning to end. You can actually go in and just pour one layer, and maybe it livens up what you've got already done. So there are a lot of things you can do with pouring. There's a lot of brush work here. What I did. How about that? Right side up? Okay. I didn't like it. I'm still not crazy about it. But what I want to tell you about it, even though I didn't like it, I decided to go back in and try and save it. And what I did is I put in the turquoise. And I moved the turquoise around a little bit to give me some cohesiveness. I didn't think there was enough going on. So, good, bad, you like it, you don't like it. But those are the things you do. You go in and you try something with what you've already finished because you don't like it. And I like that. I like the turquoise. Brushwork. Now, most of it was all poured. This was a poured painting. And I didn't like what I had. And rather than just trash it, I said, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change some things. And you can. And this is transparent. So you can lift, you can add color. So there's a lot of things you can do. Don't just think, I have to pour all of it. You don't have to do anything. You just have to have an open mind to try it. And sometimes when you really are feeling nothing's turning out right, I get that. Totally get that. You try something different and it just changes your world. Like Cole's atomizing demo last year. It changed my world because I said, I can do that and I can start. And I started with where he was and I added to it. So you add to it with other people's and other experiences. And I've heard so many interesting things this weekend, so many great ideas to add or to enhance what I'm already doing. So use those. I don't know her exact method, but I know she's pouring. But I'm not sure what percentage is pouring and how much you refresh. Okay. Yeah. No, that was the end of the pour. That's almost all pour. I almost didn't do any brush work on that. Yes. To tell you the truth, the atomizer has to be cleaned constantly, but a spray bottle doesn't if you're using it all the time, and they do about the same thing. These are very, very fine mist sprayers. They're as fine as the atomizer. They are not the typical spraying bottles. And even though I use these occasionally, these don't apply it in a fine mist. But, they'll put color on the paper. It depends on what you want. So I've tried a lot of different things. See, try. Yes. You don't. It dries out on its own. It dries. You just leave it there. But now you don't have a wet, sloppy towel that you have to go in the washing and wash and rip through the laundry room. So that's my best thing. Yes. Oh, I do work in photographs, and I was told yesterday I'm leaving too much in my paintings. I got to take stuff out. So that was from our intrepid Mark. I'm sorry. I'm just brain's not working very well. Yes, I project. Yeah, and I didn't bring it in because after I talked to Mark, I was embarrassed to show it to you. But I have a painting that I'm going to have to go back and rework because he said you really need a change in values here. And I go, okay, I get it. And when he said it, I totally saw it. But until he said it, I couldn't. So if you ever get a chance to talk to the judge and do one of these one-on-ones, oh, it's so worth it because you're walking along, feeling good, life is great, and and he's terrific. He was great. He was so sweet, but he just immediately drew my eyes to what I should have been seeing, and I had, and that made all the difference in the world. And so you get better because of that. When people really help you out and tell you the truth, that you really need to look at this area. That's what you really need. You don't need, gosh, it's a painting, Mom. So use those critique times, and if you have a friend or if you have a mentor, if you can get a mentor, somebody who's experienced, who's been in the watercolor world for a long time, who's done a lot of shows, who has a lot of experience, you talk to them, you show them, and if they're really good friends or if they're a good mentor, they're going to tell you then it's really good, or you really need to rework it, or throw it out and start it. I've heard those words. I'm a retired tax accountant. What can I tell you? I won the award last year for 50th anniversary, and I'll tell you the secret of demos is look who won the award this year, because they'll be asked next year to do demos. Yes. Sure, absolutely. You get a lot of found and lost edges, but yeah, you can go in and soften anything. Yeah, as long as you're using transparent watercolor. If you use the acrylics, you won't. So it's good and it's bad. It's useful, but you can't do everything with an acrylic that you can do with transparent. So, and since everything is aqueous now, you can combine. You can even use a wood. You know? Yes, all those things are available. Don't ever say I can't do this. Don't ever say that. Absolutely. I mean, you really should think about the things that you all hear. Oh, don't put white on paper, but you can. And there are whites that are acceptable in almost every show. So there's only a couple of shows that need paper. And unless planning to do those shows, then you got to rethink. So experiment, try new things. Don't put yourself in a box. Don't make yourself paint every day the same way. Some days you just got to get up and say, I'm going to try something different. And it really helps, and it really has done well for me. So I have to say, I really enjoyed this, and I really thank y'all for coming on. So glad I got you here. Thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you, Marilyn, for holding your own and saying she stays in this book. Well, all things. No, we've moved tables. We're all set up. Hey, Diane, thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm very nervous.
Somebody that was nervous, you did a beautiful job.
Thank you.
Beautiful.